What if the most agonizing question in human relationships, why wasn't I enough, is the wrong question entirely? What if the pursuit of being enough for someone else is the very architecture of our own suffering? We are told to be loyal, supportive, and consistent. We are told to give. But what if the one thing that creates unwavering strength, the one thing that others find themselves loyal to, is not something you give at all, but something you are? By the end of our time together, you will not only understand the nature of this inner gravity, but you will possess the Stoic blueprint to begin building it. We will dismantle the fragile bargains we make for love and replace them with an internal fortress that no external storm can breach. And we will close a loop you may not even know is open, the gap between the person you perform and the person you are. Before we begin this work, let's be clear. What follows is a philosophical inquiry, an exploration of principles that have been tested in the forge of human experience for 2 millennia. This is not medical advice, financial counsel, or a substitute for professional individualized therapy. It is a mirror for your own reflection. The choices you make are yours alone, and true Stoic practice demands that you take full responsibility for them. Consult qualified professionals for personal, legal, or medical decisions. Our aim here is clarity, not prescription. We begin with a familiar scene, a tragedy, quiet and common. A man sits in the ruins of a relationship. He did, by all external measures, everything. He was the loyal partner, the supportive friend, the consistent provider. He gave gifts, he sacrificed his time, he compromised his preferences. He kept a mental ledger, and his side was full. Her side, in the end, was empty, because she walked away. Now he is left with the calculation, the confusion, and the one burning question. Why? He believed he was signing a contract. He believed loyalty, effort, and sacrifice were the currency, and the expected return was her devotion. But he has discovered that he was the only one who had signed. He feels cheated. He feels betrayed. He concludes that his efforts were worthless, that he was not enough. And here, the ancient Stoics would pause. They would look at this man not with scorn, but with a profound, surgical compassion. They would see his error, not an error of malice or of insufficient effort, but a fundamental error of judgment. His mistake was not in giving. His mistake was in transacting. He was not being virtuous. He was spending virtue in the hopes of a return. He placed his good, his sense of peace, his validation, his happiness, in something entirely outside of his control, the mind and heart of another person. He built his house on the sand of her approval, and when the tide of her feelings turned, his house was destroyed. A certain modern interpretation, one that borrows the language of Stoicism without its soul, would diagnose this problem differently. It would tell this man that his error was tactical. It would say, you were too available. You were emotional support when you should have been emotional gravity. You made her your mission instead of having your own mission. It would advise him to be more aloof, to set boundaries as a display, to perform a kind of masculine energy that is alluringly distant. It would tell him, in essence, to play a better, more sophisticated game. It suggests that women are loyal not to what you do for them, but to how you make them feel about who you are. At first, this sounds like an improvement. It moves the focus from actions to being. But look closer. It is the same trap, just with more elegant wiring. If your goal is still to make her feel a certain way, to make her feel secure, feminine, or lucky to be near you, you are still a prisoner. You have simply exchanged the chains of a simple servant for the golden handcuffs of a master performer. You are still checking her face for the reaction. Your peace is still contingent on her approval. You are still asking her, silently or not, is this working? Do you feel secure now? Am I being the man on a mission effectively enough for you? This is not freedom. This is just a more stressful performance. The Stoic path is more radical, more terrifying, and ultimately more liberating. It begins with the single most important principle of the philosophy, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, a slave who became one of philosophy's most vital voices, taught this with brutal simplicity. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. What is up to us? Our judgments, our choices, our impulses to act or not act, our assent to our impressions. In short, our character and the choices that flow from it. This, our prohoresis or faculty of choice, is our inner fortress. It is the one thing that is truly indivisibly ours. No one can force you to make a judgment you do not wish to make. No one can steal your principles unless you surrender them. What is not up to us? Everything else. Our body, our health, our reputation, our wealth. And most critically for this discussion, the thoughts, feelings, and choices of other people. Their loyalty is not in your control. Their approval is not in your control. Whether they stay or go is not in your control. The man in our tragedy made his peace dependent on an external. The improved version, the performer, makes his peace dependent on an external. The Stoic turns his gaze inward. He redefines the entire goal. The goal is not to keep her loyal. The goal is to be a virtuous man, a man of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, regardless of what she or anyone else chooses to do. This is the one thing the video we are transforming alludes to, but misses. The one thing women or men or anyone is truly loyal to in a deep and resonant way is character. But even that is a secondary benefit. The Stoic is loyal to his own character first. He does this not to be attractive, but because it is the sole good. Let us rebuild this man, our friend who suffered from Stoic first principles. Let us give him a new architecture. First, we must correct his understanding of emotional gravity. The source suggests this is a posture of being centered and unshaken for her. The Stoic correction is that you must be centered and unshaken, period. Your center of gravity cannot be in another person. It must reside within your own reasoned judgment. When she has a bad day or is swept by an emotional storm, the man who is transacting, our first example, panics. He rushes to fix it, not for her sake, but to restore his own peace, which he has tethered to hers. He becomes a sponge, soaking up her anxiety, and now there are two anxious people. He calls this empathy. The Stoics would call it a failure of judgment, a mistaken belief that her bad day is his bad thing. The performer, our second example, might act unshaken. He might put on a mask of calm, believing this is what she wants. But inside, he is churning, calculating his every move. He is a hollow rock. The Stoic, however, is the rock. Not because he is unfeeling, but because his feelings do not dictate his judgments. This is the crucial distinction. He sees her distress. He judges it for what it is, an external event. It is a dispreferred indifferent. It is not bad for her to be upset. but he would prefer she were not. He can sit with her in her storm, but he is not of the storm. He does not add his panic to hers. He is not emotional support in the sense of a flimsy crutch, nor is he emotional gravity in the sense of a performance of strength. He is simply present, a solid, clear, rational presence whose own peace is not on the table. He can offer comfort, he can listen, he can help her analyze her own judgments. But he does so from his fortress, not from the battlefield alongside her. His peace is not conditional, and that, as a byproduct, is the most profoundly secure feeling one can offer another human being. It is the security of knowing you are with someone who will not collapse, because his foundations are not in you. Consider the story of Mark. Mark was, by his own definition, a great boyfriend. He and his partner were intertwined. He called it being close. What it meant was that he had no boundaries. Her anxieties were his. Her work stress became his evening's obsession. He would text her constantly, not just to connect, but to check the emotional temperature to ensure his good was still secure. He thought that by mirroring her every feeling, he was showing her, "I am with you." But what she felt was something different. She felt pressure. She felt that not only did she have to manage her own emotions, but she was now responsible for his as well. When she was sad, he became frantic, which made her feel guilty for her sadness. He was not a partner. He was an emotional dependent. His downfall was inevitable. When a real crisis hit, a death in her family, she did not turn to Mark. She couldn't. His predictable panic would only amplify her pain. She turned instead to her sister, to a friend, to anyone who could simply be there without making her grief about them. Mark's preventable downfall was not a failure of love, it was an abdication of his own center. He had no gravity of his own. Second, let us address the idea of the mission. The source content is correct that a man who makes his partner his entire mission becomes uninteresting. But its reason is, again, tactical. It implies she wants to see you grind and evolve because it's a display of high value. The Stoic reframe is far more profound. Your mission is not a performance to keep her intrigued. Your mission is your duty. It is your kathekon, your appropriate action as a rational social creature. It is the application of your virtue in the world. You pursue excellence in your craft. You build your body. You sharpen your mind. You contribute to your community because that is what a good human being does. You do it for you. You do it for logos, the rational order of the universe. The validation comes from the act itself, not from her applause. A man who abandons his purpose to orbit his partner has not only made her responsible for his meaning in life, an unbearable burden, he has also betrayed his own nature. He has stopped being a full human. He has abdicated his role in the cosmos to become a mere satellite. A Machiavellian lens, which the prompt allows us to juxtapose, would see this mission purely as a power play. It's a demonstration of competence, resource gathering, and status. It creates scarcity. Your time is valuable, so she must compete for it. This makes you the prize. And to be clear, this dynamic does often play out in the world. But the Stoic is not a cynic. He sees this dynamic, he acknowledges it as an external pattern, and he is indifferent to it. He is not on his mission in order to be the prize. He is on his mission because it is his purpose. If, as a byproduct, this creates respect or attraction, that is a preferred indifferent. It is welcome, but it is not the goal. His good remains in the doing, not the getting. This brings us to Alex's awakening. Alex was a different case from Mark. He wasn't anxious. He was an all-in romantic. When he fell in love, he merged. His hobbies became her hobbies. His friends faded, replaced by her friends. He called it devotion. He was proud of his sacrifice. His mission was her happiness. The hard lesson arrived not as a breakup, but as a promotion at his job. He got the new title, the corner office, the raise, and he felt absolutely nothing. The achievement was hollow. It was meaningless to him because he had no why that was his own. He had no internal engine. He only knew how to refuel at her station. His awakening was slow and painful. He realized he had become a ghost in his own life. His transformation was not dramatic. It began when he resurrected an old, forgotten project, a complex piece of software he'd always wanted to build. It was useless for his career. It had no financial upside. His partner, in fact, was mildly annoyed by the time it took. But it was his. It demanded his focus, his discipline, his reason. He spent late nights in the forge of that problem, hammering out code, failing, and rebuilding. He wasn't doing it for her. He was doing it for himself. And a strange thing happened. He became more interesting. He brought a different energy home, not the needy energy of a dependent, but the quiet, charged energy of a creator. He had a center of gravity again. His partner didn't have to be his sun, moon, and stars. She could just be his partner, another star moving in her own orbit alongside his. He had learned to be loyal to his own rational purpose. Third, we must speak of boundaries. The source suggests women are loyal to boundaries, not to pleasing. It says they want a man who can't be moved by emotion, and that you should walk away when they're crossed. This is, again, half-truth wrapped in a tactical error. Let's be precise. Boundaries are not weapons. You do not set them to get a reaction. You do not enforce them to make her respect you. Boundaries are the natural expression of your self-respect. They are the walls of your inner fortress. They are a simple, non-emotional statement of what is yours and what is not. What is yours? Your prohairesis, your choices, your values, your time. A boundary is not, you must not yell at me. A command, an attempt to control an external. A boundary is, I will not participate in conversations that involve yelling. If you yell, I will leave the room. The first is a wish. The second is a choice. It is a statement of your action, which is in your control. The man who pleases is the man who sells his yes for approval. He says yes when his soul screams no. He betrays his own principles to keep a fragile external peace. The Stoics would call this an act of profound injustice, an injustice to himself. He is treating his own reason, his own time, as worthless. And the idea of a man who can't be moved by emotion is a dangerous, almost sociopathic misreading of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, does not sound like a man without feeling. He sounds like a man wrestling mightily with his feelings. He feels anger, grief, frustration, and weariness. The difference is he does not assent to them. He does not grant them the judgment that they are bad. He feels the flash of anger at an incompetent general, but he does not assent to the judgment. This is ruining my day. I must scream at him. he inserts a pause. He consults his reason. He chooses his response based on principle, justice, and effective correction, the good of the army, not on passion. This is not being unmoved by emotion. This is emotional discipline. This is feeling the wave, acknowledging its power, but refusing to let it crash the ship. You are the captain, not the wave. David's transformation illustrates this. David was the ultimate nice guy. He was a pleaser in every aspect of his life. His life was a series of small daily self-betrayals. He said yes to projects he despised, yes to social events that drained him, yes to his partner's every whim. Even when it contradicted his own needs, he thought this made him agreeable. In truth, it made him invisible. He was a man without a shape, a mist, and deep down, he was simmering with a resentment that poisoned everything. His change began with a simple Stoic exercise, reading Seneca's On the Shortness of Life. He was struck by the line about how we guard our property fiercely, but give away our time, the one thing we can never get back, as if it were nothing. He started to see his pleasing as a form of theft, with himself as the victim. He began the slow, painful work of building his architecture. He didn't start by making grand proclamations. He started small. When asked to join a committee he knew was a waste of his purpose, he paused. He felt the familiar panic, the fear of disappointing. He acknowledged the feeling, and then he consulted his reason. He said clearly and calmly, "Thank you for the offer, but I cannot give that the focus it deserves. My priorities are elsewhere." He did not over-explain. He did not make excuses. He simply stated his choice. The world did not end. The person was mildly disappointed, and then they moved on. David, however, was transformed. He had laid a brick in his fortress wall. He did this again and again. With his partner, he stopped a discussion that was becoming heated. "I feel this is becoming unproductive. I am going to take a walk to clear my head, and we can speak about this calmly later." He did not walk away to punish her. He walked away to protect his reason. He was not controlling her behavior, he was mastering his own. This is the practice of boundaries. It is a quiet, daily discipline. It is the architecture of self-respect. Finally, we address the most loaded idea, masculine energy. The source says, "Don't open up too soon, and don't hand her the steering wheel of your soul." It defines this energy as clarity, certainty, and direction. Let us throw out the vague and loaded term masculine energy and replace it with Stoic character. A person of character, male or female, possesses clarity, certainty, and direction. The clarity comes from knowing your principles. The certainty comes from knowing what is and is not in your control. The direction comes from your loyalty to your mission, your purpose. The source's advice not to open up too soon or turn her into your therapist is actually sound, but for different reasons. The Stoic reframe is not about game or maintaining polarity. It is about prudence. You do not give the keys to your inner fortress to a stranger. That is not vulnerability. It is recklessness. You share your inner world with those who have earned that trust. Your soul, your proheresis, is your own. You never hand that steering wheel to anyone. To do so is the ultimate abdication of your humanity. You can and should share your feelings with a trusted partner. I feel sad about this setback. I am frustrated by this event. These are indifference. But you do not hand over your judgment. You do not say, "This setback is a catastrophe, and my life is over. What do I do?" You maintain ownership of your reasoned response. You are emotionally aware, as the source says, but your reason holds the rudder. This is the synthesis. The man in the original video, the man who did everything and was left, made a fundamental error. He tried to do things for her to get loyalty from her. He was a transaction. The improved man, the performer, makes a more subtle error. He tries to be someone for her to get a feeling from her, which he hopes will translate to loyalty. He is a performance. The Stoic man has a different aim. He practices being. He practices his virtue. He builds his inner fortress. He is loyal to his principles. He does things for himself, for his own character. He is not a transaction nor a performance. He is a presence. He is a man who has his own center of gravity. And this brings us to the source's most seductive and most dangerous final claim. Once you become the man who needs nothing from her, she gives everything freely. This is the last trap. It is the siren song of outcome dependency. It still defines success by her action. It says, do all this internal work so that you can finally get the external reward. The Stoic rejects this. This is the final, most difficult test. You must do the work. You must build the fortress. You must become the man who truly needs nothing from her, including her loyalty, and you must be willing to get nothing. The goal of Stoicism is eudaimonia, a flourishing life of virtue and inner peace, which is entirely internal. It is not a tactic to get a better relationship. The paradox is that this internal self-sufficient strength is, in fact, the most attractive and stable thing a human can be. But you cannot do it in order to be attractive. You must do it because it is right. So what then of love? The Stoic is not a cold fish. He loves deeply, but he loves virtuously. He loves the character of the other person. He wishes them well. He acts for their good, but he does not need them for his own peace. He prefers to be with them. He is grateful for their presence in his life. He sees it as a preferred indifferent. But if that person chooses to leave, he will be sad. He will grieve. That is a natural physiological response. But he will not be broken. He will not despair because his good was never in them. His fortress stands. His self is intact. He can love freely precisely because he is not needy. He can give, truly give, because he is not transacting. Let us return to the hook we set at the beginning. The one thing you must be loyal to before anyone can be loyal to you. It is not a person. It is not a mission. It is not a set of boundaries. It is your proheresis, your ruling faculty, your capacity to choose, to judge, to act with reason and virtue. That is the one thing. When you are loyal to that above all else, you become the gravity. You become the mission. You become the boundary. You stop doing and you start being. This is the man who does not chase or beg or perform. This is the man who leads himself, who builds his character, who becomes a Stoic. This work is not a revelation. It is an architecture. It is built brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. You will fail. You will forget. You will be pulled back into the old habits of validation seeking. And in that moment, you will simply notice, forgive yourself, and consult your reason. You will lay the next brick. This internal architecture is our primary work. But this fortress is not a prison. It is a command center. From here, the Stoic engages with the world, with his community, with his time. And it is time, our one non-renewable resource that demands the most disciplined application of these principles. Perhaps then, our next conversation should not be about what we do, but when. How does the Stoic master his days? How does he practice the most profound discipline of all, the discipline of time?